5 to 25 acres, that's fine. We're not talking about that. We're specifically talking about the 42.2 acres of 750 Shell Road. That has no date other than being an economic development. But that has a date, it has something. It's something there somewhere. And that's what I'm requesting, and that's why I have a meeting with Mary Button on the 26th to find that out. Because you can put a timeline to what they're doing and what they're saying. It's very easy to see this at this point. But like what we're doing today and everything like that, how to engage the community and priorities and what to do, we need to be laser focused and specific in what we're saying, that we don't want it, but also the ideas that we are giving them that they should be looking at. And we should not be getting force-fed North Point at this point. That should be the only one, like, okay, we need to meet again with North Point. Because they're not the only people that could potentially do that. However, they're the only people that have probably saw that land because of where that land is sitting. Mind you, again, it's on Economic Development's website. It's literally there. And that is their main focus and purpose.
Yeah, now you just said something that was, first of all, let's pray. Let's pray. God, we thank you for tonight, Lord. We thank you for the privilege you've given us to come together, hearts and minds, for a cause that is significant, for a cause that is meaningful, for a cause that is important. Give us now wisdom and guidance and lead us, O Lord, in the direction you would have us to go. Give us insight and knowledge that we didn't know we had. Help us see what needs to be seen and help us raise the questions that need to be raised. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now, I'm glad you said that, Aaron, because one of the things, I was talking to somebody today, and what they were sharing with me, and they are a city planner themselves, and they have some concern over how it has been gone, how this whole process has taken place. And what they shared with me today was, and you said it on point, that our language has to be laser focused, and laser focused to the degree on what the city has promised in their own writing, but have failed to do. What they have said that their policies would consist of. And so I gave you a handout just now, and that's a few of the citywide policies. And what I lifted before in one of the meetings we went to was 25, 27, and 29. Now, the concern at the last meeting we had at the Boys and Girls Club was when I mentioned number 29 to Mary Bunting in the room.
Yes.
And how she said that they determine what's compatible to the neighborhood. But that's really not what their policy states.
It's biased.
It's very biased. And it leaves room for their interpretation of how they want it to be viewed. And so I think that what we need to do is we need to be careful, and every time we speak to them, right, in a public forum, we remind them of what they say their interaction is based upon their policies. Because even if we try to combat the process that they have started, that's going to be like combating, you're fighting against the wind. And so what we have to fight against is what they have established as their policy, and let their lack of integrity now be the issue on the table. Because even if we voice our concerns, which we're going to do, right, about how we don't want to see the warehouses, what it comes down to is their lack of ethics and integrity. I learned today that there's something called equity in planning. And they have this national association. And they just had a conference in Richmond this past weekend for city planners, right, to come. And they talked about, the one major issue they talked about was ethics in their planning and how they have to begin to address this disproportionate activity they've been doing, redlining throughout their history. How they now have to be very intentional in bringing communities to the table, which again addresses their policies right here. That they're going to be willing to engage the communities in seeing what the communities desire to have as a way to facilitate this lack of equity that has been prevalent in our communities forever, because they tend to be more, as you were sharing, somebody like Terry O'Neill, who would never set foot in that community to figure out what they want, but then they can tell us what we want. So our language has to be very centralized and very key, which is why I gave everybody that handout, because what they want us to do, now this is just my estimation, just based upon and listening in the meetings, what they want us to do is to be over emotional and not very thought provoking. They want us to wear our emotions on our sleeves, and because as long as we're emotional, we're not going to really dive down and address what needs to be addressed, policies, their inability to honor their word, their policies that are written, these kind of things. And so I think it's important for us to make sure that, yes, we are emotional. Yes, we know what we want, but we have to be very laser focused in making sure that when we come and talk to you, my grandma used to always say that it's important to talk to people as if you have some sense, right? Because then they'll take you more seriously as opposed to just coming and just being all over the place. So that we can have all the meetings we want. I sent you guys an email the other day that I got an email from Mark at North Point. And his question to me was, based upon the last meeting, it was mentioned that you wanted to have further meetings, right, to discuss options. And I said, if you go back to the meeting, it was requested that we have subsequent meetings to discuss what we wanted to see from the community outside of your warehouses. So I said, that's where we are. That's what we want to do. We want to be able to talk about what other options exist for us and not have the warehouses be what you want us to have. Following that email, Mary Bunting emailed me with the same line of question. Would your group be open to meeting with some city people in North Point? And I told her, I said, North Point doesn't need to be at the meetings, simply because if we meet with you in North Point, it's as if we are saying we want what they have to offer. We don't want what they have to offer. Now, out of respect for you, Mary, it's very disrespectful for the city not to come to the table with the residents to see what the residents and the community desire to have absent North Point. I sent this back to her on Saturday, and today is Wednesday, and I haven't heard back. And as Miss Nancy said, she probably has to go now to see if I can get permission from somebody to meet with them or city people to meet with them.
No.
Absent North Point.
She does not have to do that.
I don't know.
So now I'm going to tell you from experience. Everything runs through her assistant. And with her assistant sets up all the meetings and everything else like that. And because she is the city manager, obviously she has more than just this on her plate.
Yeah, I understand.
So meeting with her and setting up meetings, we can have meetings with just her, just whoever the zoning officials, economic development officials, whoever, minus North Point. That's fine, but it's going to take some time. It's definitely going to take some time. Like for instance, my meeting is on July 26th, as I said. And I've been talking to her since, I've been emailing her since the last part of June, as I brought up in the meeting, where she said she didn't get it. So I nicely forwarded that email, another email to her, showing her that it was sent to her on this. Mind you, this was June 10th. So it took June 10th to June 26th to get a meeting with her.
Okay.
So it's now, mind you, what I would do is I would stay up on that, and I would I would forward the email, and matter of fact, I'm going to get for you the assistant's email too. Okay. Because again, like she said at the meeting, she was 100% correct on it. Her life, well, she told me, I don't know if she said it out loud or not. Her life basically goes through her assistant.
Okay, well, send me give me the assistant's email, and I'll forward it. I'll send the email to the assistant.
Reverend Kenny, another thing, I still say they are stonewalling And when I say stonewalling, very evasive, avoiding. You might be busy, but you're not that busy. And you keep trying to shove North Point down our throat. No means no. And I thank God for the daily press, for mass media, for Wavy TV 10, for public broadcast, for social media, the internet. It proves one thing: they are on public stage. And as you just said yourself, they are unethical, unlogical. To me, illicit behavior is now for the world to see.
Yeah,
What they are doing. It is not right.
Yeah, this whole approach that they're giving is very
It's stonewalling.
unethical to me.
It's
I mean,
stonewalling. You
yeah.
can't get around
Yeah.
it.
This is the Hampton way. They've done this for years, the same thing. That's why all their projects go bad, because they start out in one place, end up another, and people can't work with them. They're very hard to work with.
I think they've signed a deal with North Point. That's what I'm gonna tell you. Back door, under door, and any other door.
Well,
But one thing we can say, we are here. They are to me shameless in what they are doing. They daily press, thank God for them again. They go back to their director telling us from 2012 up until present, economic, industrial, what they see and they want for us. Miss Nancy and God knows everybody else, they have a section about the residents who have declared in 2014, the mixed communities, our feelings about, as you said, environmental justices. These have all been played out on the stage. Don't act like you don't know. This tells us we do not want industrial, so no means no, as my mother and father taught me.
Right.
So there is no room for North Point anymore. As long as they are representing light industrial or any other industrial, case closed, goodbye.
Right. Aaron, Miss Nancy sent me and I guess you're asking about the timeline. She sent me I guess it was a draft from 2013 that they had this mixed use,
Yeah, I said it.
I got it.
this mixed use plan.
Mhm.
Right.
And I asked her about that. I asked Mary about that plan, and she said that that plan was around the same time. It was a draft around the same time they were talking about Lincoln Park. And then she said, her exact words to me was an email was, the city changed direction from that plan in 2014, right? So, I guess to answer your question or to fill in that gap, I wonder if that 2013, 2014 mixed use plan that was proposed and the city just decided then to change direction, is that when we ended up in, this property ends up in the hands of economic development? I'm not sure.
Well, so to kind of piggyback and answer that really, that's not how the city works in terms of everything. If they did that on their own and said that, that's one thing, right? But everything with the city has to be documented and also put to a vote of some kind. That's why I keep harping on 2016, because now if they said they did it or whatever the case, that's what they say out their mouth. But nothing is official until it's voted on by city council. So whatever they're talking about doesn't matter. What matters is what happened in 2016 and 17.
Right.
Now, because they can say that they went another way, that's fine. You can say all that all day. We can talk all day. But it does not matter until it is put to something official in terms of official vote, like 2016 and 2017, or something like that.
So my question is,
Mm-hmm.
when and how did they vote first time to allow city staff to work with us? They had to have voted on it.
So matter of fact, that's an amazing question, quite honest, because
And
I
when
can't.
did they change it? Two days.
Exactly. So what I'm going to end up having to do is I'm going to have to end up building some kind of timeline at this point, because I was going to the 2016 official stuff. But if that is in fact the case, if that's what she said, if they said out their mouth that they're going another direction, fine, okay. But now I want to know. I want some kind of timeline which she won't have, so I'm gonna have to end up emailing her assistant early so I can so they can have enough time to get this information.
So it had to be
Because-
before 2009, because all of those meetings were held to plan for the site, what would happen. 2009.
So as much factual information we can get, right, to at least to support our claims and our arguments, it further emphasizes this idea of their lack of ethics and integrity. Because if you're just making these arbitrary decisions, right, and like when the guy told us at this first meeting we had, that they don't typically invite the community to land use amendment meetings. That's something they don't normally do. And so the question was raised, well, if you don't invite the community to the land use amendment meetings, how can the community voice their concerns about what it is you're trying to do? And then you just make it easier for you to accomplish your end goal without the resistance from the community, because it is not our policy to notify you when we're having a land use amendment meeting. So, I see, Ms. Russell. So these are the kind of things that, if you talk about the timeline, Aaron, having as much factual information as we can get to present this stuff as a way of not going in and being too far this side, but standing in the middle and saying, okay, yes, we're passionate about this, and this is why. Because of your practice and your policies and your lack of integrity and how you're presenting this whole thing to us as a community.
Two things. You mentioned just now that somebody said that they did not solicit community input for these type of decisions for mixed use or whatever you just mentioned. I forgot exactly how you mentioned it. However, Mary, one that actually Mayor Tuck, he posted one, he rebutted the way he's.
I saw that, yeah.
The publication said that there was no interest of us. We didn't come out to any meeting. So if they don't solicit input, how can he just say that we didn't show any interest or we weren't opposed to that?
Because it makes them look like they're in the right.
Well, yeah, but they're saying both things. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. One time it's this and one time it's the other one. Also, if they truly were interested in treating us with dignity and respect, I have meanwhile written 2 emails, and I think I copied you on my most recent one of July 9th, I believe it was, or 7th. I did receive one response from the council clerk saying that they received it because I requested acknowledgement. They received it, and it would be distributed to every council member. Again, and I wrote in detail and precisely about the issue at hand. Not one of them has given me the courtesy to even say thank you for your email. We are reviewing it. Nothing. Not one response. How is that to be explained? If they truly see us as someone that they are listening to and then they're concerned about our input, also, Ms. Nancy, you probably remember when we went to the meetings with the Virginia Beach consultants and they were drawing up a nice community. When we were opposed to them moving everyone from Lincoln Park and putting them on that property, we were opposed to that. We said, no, we don't want another concentration of people, that are educated, because there was a lot of crime at that location. So we were opposed to that, but we were all in agreement to that nice mixed housing that they drew up and showed us. Lovely, lovely community, right?
Yeah.
And now they claim we didn't want that. That's such a blatant lie. I don't think I'm the only one that can remember that. That was in 2013, 12 or 13, something like that.
2013.
Somebody help me with this. Planning Commission recommends to City Council what they think is best.
Correct.
Council then decides what they think is best.
Correct. They can either use what the planning commission say, or they don't have to.
Or they ain't gotta pay attention to it at all. So our approach is gonna have to be, well, it's gonna have to be a twofold approach. Pressure on both ends, council and planning commission.
Speaking of that too, I know you all don't watch the city council meeting, but the last city council meeting I was there. So, hold on, the article you were speaking of, right, that's the Wavy article when he tried to make it seem like we didn't care, right? Okay, so here's his response to that, because, I wanted to talk to him about that.
Okay,
So, his response to that was, he said he did not mean it to sound like that, but the statement was true. Now, again, mind you, and I explained to him that it was not full context. The full context of the situation was not there in terms of we were not fully notified. None of us were notified. None of us saw any kind of billboard on this property or anything like that. That was not done. So, and he kind of shrugged that off and then started talking about something else, and then we ended up ended the call after that. But he heard me, so I did talk to him about that. And again, this was his exact words. I talked to him on the phone. His exact words was he didn't mean it to sound like that, but it was what happened. So y'all can take that for what it is. Take that for what it is.
I didn't mean for it to sound like that, but this is what happened.
Correct, exactly. And we're not gonna run another ad to clarify that, pretty much. But yeah, pretty much. But the second part about that, the reason this Wednesday, it was 2 people. It was 4 general comments. 2 people. I'm gonna send you that, and Ms. Nancy, I'm gonna send you that. It's a long city council meeting, but at the public comment forum, 2 people spoke. One nice young lady who apparently was Miss Mary Christian's, I don't know if it was a secretary or what, and she was vehemently against it, but she also explained the reason why she was vehemently against it. Mind you, this is public comment, so this was just her coming out saying that. So she explained how she went back to talking about the document that the family signed and all that now, which we now know that doesn't matter anymore. But she went on to talk about that, and she went on also to talk about how Ms. Christian wanted it to be for that kind of use, meaning specifically in terms of helping people of color and stuff like that. It was vehemently against exactly what we heard, and that Greg Garrett. It was exactly against what Greg Garrett said. And again, that's why I said something to him into his face. But so that was the first person, and then another doctor came too. I can't remember the name of the society, but she said it. So again, like I said, I'm gonna send it to you all. But what it was the doctor came up and how she wanted to be basically like what we've been saying, some kind of historic site, but some kind of mixed-use living type things too as well. And she's from an organization for the handicapped. Like I said, so there was 2 people who spoke at the public at City Council this last Wednesday that happened. And the next City Council meeting ain't until August, because this is the season where they only meet once a month. So, but so that's what happened at the City Council too. So there's people also saying this to them,
So,
and we need to keep doing this.
that's my next question. How do we engage the larger community with sharing the information, letting them know what's at stake, if nothing else. This is what's at stake that might be in your back door, because I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of residents primarily in that area over there who have no idea what's on the table right now for them.
Kenny, I think I was all broken down. My hip was on fire by the time we started walking to our neighborhood, delivering those flyers. They were great. The church designed for us for the last meeting at the Boys and Girls Club. But I think what would be advantageous for us would be to have greater detail, really like a letter. Have really already letting them know before they say, oh, we're going to be in town. I think once they really understand the full impact of everything and what's at stake,
But it's still there, though.
And I try to, you know, like I send it out to Aberdeen Gardens on Instagram. I say, please share this in your area. And that's why I was asking about Little Zion and how they ended up being adversely affected by the hotel. Because if they have gone, if that community has gone through that before, then they would have some kind of understanding and hopefully, prayerfully, some empathy to not to see it happen again. So how do we engage these communities that have already went down this path and had to suffer, you know, unfortunately, the repercussions of what the city wanted to do over and against what the community may have desired. So that's my thinking. How do we bring in or engage this larger Hampton, whether you live in the back door or you live over there, it's still black community, black life that's going to be affected by it.
The only way I've seen to engage this community is to go door to
Door to door.
door to door, and talk to the people and let them know what you're doing and collect their information as to how we can get back to them. That's how I work.
What about Pastor Point, Samuel, the gentleman from the school, Hampton City Schools,
Jason
was talking about how they had a
Jason.
similar situation and
Yes,
how,
yeah.
what mechanism did they use?
Well, he mentioned a Facebook group page, and I know the Facebook group page he mentioned that they were
Twitter.
using.
They had
Some social
communication.
media.
Yes.
But you have to remember that community is different from this one because we're poor.
Yeah, Hampton Roads Gospel Express radio show is going to charge you some money. Yeah, they're going to charge. They're not going to do it for free.
What about the churches?
That's a good point. The churches, you know, sending flyers to the different churches.
How about the NAACP? I know Gayleen has been to one or two of these meetings, but she has an outreach to the churches also. So
Well-
duplication won't hurt us.
About 3 years ago, I sent an email to the NAACP asking for help
Okay.
and got nothing.
Was she the president
I
then?
got a request for a donation. They put me on their email list and I get emails from them, but in terms of helping us, I thought Gayleen was here to help us.
Yeah.
Well, this is what she told me. This is what she told me.
Okay.
She told me that the lady who's working with marrying them with this whole project asked her to come alongside to give some support, right? Her words to the lady was, if I give my support, then it's going to be in a manner where I'm going to try to solicit resistance. So for me, it's like I'm in between the two. You know, so I don't know. I hear what you're saying and understand, but I think that right now we need to be clear as to who with us and who not.
Right.
That's just me.
Yeah.
We need to be clear as to where who is really because if I got you on my side as a friend, I don't want to do too much to mess that up. But at the same time, so I can't split my loyalty both ways, and so that's how I see it. But I reach out to her, you know, and see what happens. But I'm kind of like, you know, very, very prayerful, just based upon it, because she has called me. She's told me some things that was not, like, for instance, at the last, she called me and told me about the North Point do-gooders meeting before the communication went out about the meeting. And her words was that some kind of way there was this financial something that may have been promised if we can get people together to support it. Which is why when you read the flyer, it's interesting that said do-gooders in partnership with North Point. So on one hand, the assistance has been good, but you know, I'm not quite. I'm not. You know, I just want to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck, as you said. But I'll reach out to her again to see exactly can she put the bug in people's ear. But I'm kind of like leery about how much I want you to really be out front for us, knowing that you got this other piece over here too, And I don't really know,
Very much so.
I don't know how much, the same way you tell me something,
But dog will bring
how much
the
you
bone
tell,
and carry it.
how much info you give on that side of the equation to say, this is what you gotta be up against, be prepared for this, and I don't want.
Trust.
And that's why I asked about the do-gooders, because that didn't make sense to me at all. And that's why I asked that night. That the do-gooder is like, what was their purpose at that point? And he said, I can't remember what he said at the meeting.
Well, his statement was, we're just here so that everybody can hear what's been said and we can voice our.
Correct.
And I got an email from somebody from do-gooders after we were on the news asking me, can we talk to discuss some best options or a place of compromise? I'm like, no, we ain't got nothing to talk about. Because if you're talking to me about compromise and you're black, we ain't got nothing to talk about. There ain't no compromise in this. The only compromise is they off the table and we find something else that's going to be, beneficial for us as a community. So, but I was kind of surprised when I saw the language in partnership with.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, here we go.
What about this language? And I quote from the one who's supposed to be making the decision. Chris Carter, Vice Chairman of the Hampton Planning Commission, said, Hampton and Newport News are blue-collar cities. We are about manufacturing and tech jobs. The city's Economic Development Authority, and they talked about the 50 acres, the 2.5 million back in 2010. Richmond-based law firm Mullen serves as the trustee, all right, and that owned the 23 acres which Greg Garrett purchased. And Rigney, the city's economic director, had the nerve to stand there and say about the course that they want, is it for to be commercial development type? And we jump down even further. How does that sound when those who are going to make the decision have the nerve to stand there and blatantly say that? Chris Rigney, the economic director, had the nerve to sit there and say that too, that what they want is some type of industrial type park. Now these are the ones, the Hampton Planning Commission, who was supposed to be making a call. That's already
When was that, Rick?
Yeah.
That's telling you what that was done.
We have a whole new
Yeah,
planning
it's new
commission.
people now.
He's not there.
I don't know. who Chris
But this is what I'm wondering, is that language of that thought still there?
Oh,
A leopard does not change spots, because Northport would not be continuously dangled in front of us after saying no if it had been any differently.
Well, it was at the meeting, I can't remember the guy's name. Caucasian guy had a mustache who made mention of the port
The director of that.
is very interested in the property. And my question was, as I was going home, was, well, how come nobody else is interested in the property outside of the Port of Virginia? When you got all that other stuff across the water that they can build industry all they want to and don't have nothing around them.
I'm sure they've discussed already behind closed doors with representatives from the court, because they are so, like somebody else said a minute ago, they are so behind closed doors and behind the scenes making agreements and promises. And I'm quite certain, when I heard him say that, I said, oh, sure, okay. I can imagine, because ships coming in and out day and night into this Norfolk port. And so you can imagine what kind of traffic in and out with these containers that are coming in the trucks,
Yeah.
unloading in those facilities if they were divided. It would be a
24/7.
total nightmare.
24/7.
It's 18 miles from the port. We are by Interstate 64 and 664. Once again, it may be a different character, but it's the same game plan. Chris Carter, Vice Chair of Hampton Planning Commission, said, well, he doesn't have to, but don't think that's sensitive.
I see what you're saying. So the ideology's still there.
It's still there.
The ideology.
Because we wouldn't still have Northport dangling in front of us. If that place is so prime, you mean to tell me that no other developers have noticed it? Irregardless to where it's sitting.
Well, if
Freedom
it's-
of Information Act, I want to see from 2012 of conception, everybody who has expressed an interest in that property.
And that's what you were saying about the timeline.
Exactly, I told you.
After economic development.
It is in
How-
economic development's hand.
How did they get it?
They,
and how long?
that's what matters the most. How did they get it to economic development? Whether it was that official vote to change the direction that they said in 2016, 17, but your questions are all answered by where it's at.
All right, my question to you, because I know you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Correct.
You know the linguistics, the language that they need in order to process that. I will sign my John Hancock on it, and I have no fear. Write it because you are, quote, a Hampton man, and you express yourself well. As Reverend was saying, put it in linguistic, put it directly to how it needs to be targeted as the steps that you were saying, that we will request that information from the city, and I will sign it and send it on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's a good next, a wonderful next step.
I'm gonna have to take off early this evening, I apologize, but I know that there's something going on tomorrow, is that correct?
Planning Commission. Now, the Planning Commission tomorrow, I've got their agenda right here, and this issue is not on their agenda. Tomorrow, they're gonna be talking about the rezoning application by
That's the same one we heard on the 19th.
the same guy.
They sent it to council, and council sent it back. I'm interested in finding out why they sent it back. Because that was clearly spot zoning, what they were trying to.
Right.
No. I can answer that. Oh, good. I'm glad you said that, because they, so, like I said, I was there Wednesday. So what happened was, when that area is basically near Pocosa,
Right.
Pocosa, New York town. So when it's that close to Pocosa or another city, state, or another city in that,
No, look,
that city has to be officially notified by the city that this that this is supposed to be done,
Okay.
and that was not done. So the city attorney basically had to make them send it back to the planning commission because of that, and all the proper
Nope.
places were not notified. But you're 100% correct with what that is. That would be, and that was what they were talking about when they were saying that. That the reason why the planning commission was not for it is because it would technically be spot zoning. So they would either have to basically say everybody is in this zone, everybody in this neighborhood is like that, or they would have to change the spot zoning, which is what they set up their mouths. They do not do.
It's illegal.
Correct. They don't do that. So but that's the reason why that has been sent back to the planning. That happened on Wednesday. The city attorney, the other cities, which I think is just Pocosin, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Newport, but I know Pocosin regardless, was not notified of this in the correct amount of time that it was supposed to be done. That's what that is.
And then the other item is a comprehensive plan amendment. And they want to consider amending the 2006 community plan to adopt the 2022 Hampton Roads Hazard Mitigation Plan. Plan that updates the existing mitigation plan that they adopted in 2017. This mitigation plan combines Hampton's plan with 5 other regional plans, and recommendations include local policies, incentives, and public awareness and outreach. So those are 2 items that's going to be on the agenda for tomorrow. Now, it's the question we want to ask ourselves is, do we want to go to council tomorrow and express our concerns again, even though our issue is not going to be on the table? Do we want to get our stuff together and then show up at the August meeting with facts in hand to declare what it is we want to present?
I like the facts.
Okay, so we just,
I think the course of action B is probably.
okay, so go in August, and when we have our information together, our facts, timeline, then, okay.
And when we go in August, be prepared to write all your comments down and hand it to them. Because the way they did the minutes, when we did go, they said we only oppose rezoning. That was all they said in the minutes. So if we write our comments in, and after we give it to them, hand it to them, they have to put it in the minutes.
In the minutes, okay.
I like what you said, Reverend Kenny, and it was so to the point about adhering to your word. And if it's in black and white, adhering to it. and not manipulating it to fit just your cause.
Yeah, which is why I made mention of it
You-
again.
Yeah.
The first time we went to planning commission, I brought it up, and she said I only had 3 minutes, and I think I was talking for like 5. And then I brought it up again at the last meeting, because I wanted her to address, what does this mean then? Because you write it, and we interpret it to say, well, if your buildings have to be compatible with the existing neighborhood, a warehouse is not compatible to homes.
And you could see you knocked her socks off.
And so then the answer was, well, it's how we interpret it. Well, your interpretation, your language is very ambiguous then.
Yes.
So you're leaving room to make it fit what you want to fit, and then it doesn't apply to how we read it. Then you got to go back and change it, because that's what you're playing with words, semantics. And so I think that's really what we want to be mindful of is our language, and give them back
Right.
what they're saying. Environmentally, it's an environmental justice issue. And it's not because, as Greg Garrett wants to argue that pollution, it's not about that. It's about it's another form of redlining. What's going to grow a community is when banks want to invest in a community. And if they've already targeted that community, a low investment risk community, they're not going to even go after anybody to invest in it. They're going to say, well, how can we get the most out of it that's going to appease us? Forget what happens to them. So environmental justice is not necessarily just tied to pollution and all those things. It's also tied to social justice. It's tied to economics. It's tied to how are you adding wealth to a community, adding health to a community outside of the negative climate issues that are going to address. Because what they want us to focus on when we mention environmental justice is that's why they keep saying it won't be smokestacks.
Right, but we need to clear and spell it out. for
Yeah, we won't
them.
have smokestacks. They're going to be light industrial, but whatever the case is, even if you have trucks,
24/7 truck.
you have diesel, you have road deterioration. Then you have the other aspect of the community now loses value. You have issues where there's going to be no way you can revitalize the community when you have this monstrosity of something here that does not add value at all. That's the piece of of environmental justice that I don't think they want us to focus our attention on, because as long as they keep telling you and telling us no smokestacks, that's how they think we interpret environmental justice. As long as we say, the infrastructure, that's all they want. Okay, well, we can close off one entrance of the building. Listen to what they say. We can close off one entrance, make it just emergency use to cut down on the flow of traffic, as if that one little modification you want to make is going to address the entire environmental justice issue that goes deeper than just climate stuff. So,
Yeah, and air.
Are we meeting again before that, August?
yeah, we meet every third Wednesday.
Okay.
And invite somebody to come to the next meeting. Grab them, pull them in, throw them in the back of your truck. Tell them, come, we gotta go to church.
Question, has anyone seen it in language of the 23 acres the area purchased about the original purpose of that land? About being for handicap or noise or anything of that nature?
I can answer that. So basically, to put it bluntly and very specific with my language or what I said, the descendants have thrown that away, basically. So what happened was when they sold that land they sold that land to Greg Garrett at Phoenix Industry without the properties, because they couldn't sell it with those properties being up there. So the 23 acres, so basically they sold it, they said.
You do what you want to do with it.
They took the money, they took the money. And that's what the city council is saying too, but they sold it without the properties, like it was supposed to be done.
Yeah, the rider clause has gone off of it now.
Correct.
Okay, some years ago when we had a meeting on it, and I guess Gary had recently purchased it at that time, and I asked one of the city, some of the individuals
So when did they purchase the land?
So,
They did not give a date.
The Daily Press article has it, if I can find it, but it has all of
He
that.
said, has it in there?
he said this, you said this,
This is when they told me. This week, last week ago.
what, you said directly across the street, I know you're on the corner,
I'm on the corner.
and then,
That lot beside me, adjacent, my property line.
oh, right to the left of you.
Exactly.
I got you.
That's a remnant from when they put the,
Service station.
yeah.
You know, the alert service station covers both lots. And the state school, apparently, well, Exxon had leased that property, 52 for 30 years. But just the property that I know. The other property, apparently, when they came in and did 664, and they put in that alert service station, and they leased that adjacent lot, and the lease property that I own, and made that large alert service station that covered both lots. The state school had the right to use that lot since it was already owned by the state, and they had trying to get the funding to purchase mine. I purchased it before they closed the deal, while they were trying to get funding. So since then, those lots stayed in the governor's hands back when Gilmore was governor, and it was just a thrown back and forth as to surplus land. I couldn't purchase it because it belonged to the state. It had to be offered. If it offered, it had to go to the public. And
So now it's the cities.
Now, from what the Daily Press says, the city's Economic Development Authority owns roughly 50 acres, a purchase it made for $2.5 million back in 2010.
That's 750, that's different, that's 750 show that you're talking about.
yes, that's on
And
the
it's
Shell Road.
42, it's 42.2 acres to be specific.
All right, and then Greg Garrett, supposedly the 23
25,
acres
yeah.
they claim from Old Dominion Land Trust that he purchased.
Okay. The Old Dominion Land Trust came to me to try to buy my property over the last 5, 6 years. So I'm just catching, well, I checked on the deed of the property a few months ago when it was still in the state meetings. And I put an attorney on it, but nothing that I can do. And the city says they had it as a week ago.
Wow.
So
Lord.
I don't know what's going on. When I ask questions about tenants and so forth, going into this other property or who purchased even the Garrett property, the city wouldn't give me information on it. That was several years ago before we get the news. So,
You gotta go Freedom of Information Act. That's exactly what you gotta do.
yeah, because they're not open with information. Every time you ask a question, it's like, I think they're vague about it.
Yeah, Freedom of Information Act, yeah, yeah.
I can do that for you tomorrow if you want to. Basically, all that is asking about that. But you, like, I gotta be at work. I'm not at work. But if you, if you give me your number, I'll call you from work tomorrow. And like I said, I'll do the Freedom of Information Act for you. All it is just inform that you give me your information, and you tell me what you're requesting. I already know what you're requesting. I see that. And you tell me what the information that you actually want. The city has about, 7 days to respond, whether that is giving you the information that you request, or if they're not giving that information, they need to have a verified valid reason. If they don't have a valid reason, then you can take it from there. But we can get that information from, if you just give that information. I can get you that. I think that's a little bit.
So they say the 50 acres of the city-owned property is zoned for residential development and essentially surrounded by neighborhoods on 3 sides. Currently, it's valued at about $4 million, but more than $1 million of that is buildings. And we know the buildings have been demolished, so we know that.
Here is another one of their policies. To safeguard the integrity of existing residential neighborhoods. I kid you not, that's their land use community or comprehensive plan policy number 7, to safeguard the integrity of existing residential neighborhoods. So all these things they put in their policies, they go right around. Because, and this is just my fault. They're banking on this, their comprehensive, their community plan that was adopted in 2006, it's probably about 50 pages. And they're thinking, nobody's gonna read all that stuff. First of all, nobody's gonna know where to search to go find it.
Right, it's hidden.
And then to read it, we're not gonna be abreast of, we're not gonna be abreast of what they say we're gonna adhere to. So if we don't know what you say you're gonna adhere to, we ain't got a leg to stand on.